Who is it?
It's Troy.
Yeah.
Who has ears to hear, let him hear. To whom the Spirit of the Lord will draw, I say, come. Come now. Come quickly to the truth. The world you and I live in is not real. Or more accurately, it is not true. Instead, it is a world packaged and programmed with lies, half-truths, smoke screens, cover-ups, innuendos, double meanings, agendas, false narratives, strange symbols, and things hiding in plain sight. It is like a magician's stage filled with devices, gadgets, secret doors, body doubles, and all with the intent to create an illusion, a distortion of reality that you and the other mind-bended audience believe. Somewhere in your subconscious, you know the act is not true, despite its very convincing exterior, but you don't care. You want to be entertained. You want to be fooled. And quite sadly, you are. By a deft sleight of hand and a careful yet sinister maneuvering of your mind, you have been led to believe in a false reality, a satanically generated dream world, a matrix, if you will. Let us open the scriptures to the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, reading from verse 9, which says, "The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned, who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness." It is incumbent upon me, quoting this very powerful and revelatory scripture, to highlight and explain a few key points. From the text, we want to look at, first of all, the coming of the lawless one, so we could underline that. Then we want to expound on lying wonders and unrighteous deception. Then those who perish. And I want to clarify what is meant by a strong delusion. Apparently, this strong delusion causes those who perish to believe a lie. So first of all, let's look at the coming of the lawless one. Well, what does that mean? This speaks to the purpose of Satan's elaborate scheme of deception. He wants to prepare the stage and the audience for a certain individual who would wield great power, authority, and hold the admiration of largely brainwashed subjects. In this scripture, he is called the lawless one. Elsewhere in scripture, the book of Revelation, to be precise, he is known as the beast. However, full treatise on this individual is not the purpose of this message, as that is best handled in a separate teaching. It is, however, important to understand that the installation of a one-world government headed by this individual is the devil's endgame. So this is the purpose of it all. With all the lies and all the deception and all the fooling and blinding of minds, it is all so that the world will accept Satan's champion, ruler of the most powerful government ever formed in the history of mankind. This is where it's heading, my dear listeners and viewers. Lying wonders and unrighteous deception. This was a phrase taken in the reading in 2 Thessalonians. This is the how of Satan's grand scheme. This is how he plans to manipulate and fool the entire world into accepting this super leader leading a super government. The critical question is, how do you manipulate approximately 8 billion souls to willingly accept a system of rule and a ruler whose power and authority is satanically inspired? How do you do that? The problem, of course, is that with every nation in the world having their own government, culture, currency, and major religion, trying to merge all these nations under one government, one religion, one currency, and one culture and one law is an extremely complex and difficult assignment. Also, no clear-thinking person will readily follow someone who is clearly evil. Well, at least I hope so. So, of course, that leader, though being evil, will have to be presented as good. Or the environment in which he would emerge must be made conducive to his already very strong evil presence. So there are two options basically. It's either he is able to deceive everyone into thinking he is good, or the environment, the entire world, everybody's mindset and way of thinking and all the systems of the world would have to be carefully maneuvered, carefully mobilized and terraformed into an evil society, one that would easily accept an evil leader. So this leader would have to be presented as good. And a one world government, though ultimately leading to absolute disaster, will have to be presented as a, get this, God-sent solution. Clearly, an extremely persuasive mechanism must be installed that will not force but guide, gently nudge, persuade the minds of 8 billion souls to an expected end, a new world order. But they are not calling it that. Of course they won't, despite all the information that currently exists. That phrase new world order is quite acknowledged, quite known to many that exist on the earth at this time. So the elites are clever enough not to call it that, or even if they call it that, it'll be treated as a solution to a seemingly insolvable problem. So they're not calling it that. They're calling it, they use clever disguises such as a new normal or a great reset. That persuasive mechanism is the Matrix. I want to call it that. Borrowing the idea from the popular cult science fiction action flick The Matrix, released in 1999, and if I may digress for a little bit, if you take the year 1999 and turn it upside down, then you can begin to see its true source, pun intended. But I borrowed this term, the Matrix, from that movie because in the movie, the main plot is that the people of the world were trapped in a computer-generated simulation designed to enslave and deceive all the humans of the world. But the reason why I call this elaborate deception, this unrighteous deception, this scheme of lies and half-truths and what have you from the devil, the reason why I call it the Matrix is simply because it exists to deceive. The Matrix that exists in this world and has been orchestrated by the master deceiver, that old serpent and his agents, and has been running for centuries. It is quite real. It's not a story in a movie. There is a matrix that exists in this world. So for clarity, I will define this matrix that has a firm grip on many souls in the world as a network of world systems designed to broadcast lying wonders and large-scale deception, thereby projecting a false reality to the masses. So this is the working definition of the matrix that I will use, and that you should keep in mind, dear viewer, as you listen. The systems which participate in this unrighteous deception are media, mainstream news, entertainment, music, Hollywood, etc. Government, legislation, taxation, voting, political systems like democracy, communism, socialism, etc. Education, many lies are taught here as irrefutable truth, and students are subject to a cruel examination process to determine their level of compliance and brainwash. Yes, education is not so much about developing our mental faculties and skills as it is about control and conformity. Religion. Yes, the matrix is there even according to Morpheus when you go to church. Does this shock you? It shouldn't, for the church has been infiltrated ever since the era of Christ's apostles ended. When John the Revelator died, the enemy planted tares among the wheat, creating a false religious system which blended basic tenets of the way, as Christianity was called in the first century, with paganism, a poisonous mix. In today's church, Satan has installed his agents who call themselves pastors to teach false doctrines and distort and obscure the true gospel message so that the flock can live their best life now, well, because hell is a steep downward drop after this life. Yes, and as scripture says, no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. So his agents, false prophets, false teachers, deceivers, yeah, they can transform into pastors, apostles, and prophets of God's kingdom. And how greatly they deceive. How many are their lies? How easy these lies are believed by those who perish. So let's talk about this group of individuals that are susceptible to the lies of the matrix. Now, those who perish speaks to a group, a very large group, possibly 2/3 of the world's population, that will not be saved. Why? Because according to verse 10, 2 Thessalonians, in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 10, they did not receive the love of the truth. In other words, they lack the inner constitution to accept truth. Truth was presented to them, but they rejected it. The Spirit of truth offered to change their mental programming that they might love truth. But he was also rejected, and thus the scripture is fulfilled. The Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him. This is John chapter 14 verse 17. This group is fully plugged into the matrix and are therefore in support of the world and its direction. Viewer, listener, I'm telling you the truth. If you belong to this group that is plugged in, jacked in completely, you believe almost everything that the systems of this world broadcast. You kinda also label those who tell you the truth as conspiracy theorists, fanatics, zealots, what have you. You reject all truth. If you belong to such a group, you will perish. And I'm not saying that to be mean. But I am warning you. I'm warning you in love. You will perish. Unplug from this matrix. Let the truth set you free before it is too late. Because when it is too late, there's absolutely nothing that can be done to reverse your fate. Too late, too late. You would have sealed your fate. You will perish unless you do something soon.